All right, everyone, welcome to Strictly Sports. I am Jacob Brown, joined here with CJ Uri. We're going to do a pre-mock draft pod for the NFL, talking about all the rumors that are going on right now with the NFL draft. We're not going to give our actual mock drafts. That'll be for a few days from now. We'll have Steven on that pod with us too. But right now, it's just talking about what's going on right now, and it's mayhem. There's a lot of insiders talking right now. Ian Rappaport saying the draft is basically starting today. There's a lot of teams saying, hey, let's trade our picks now, trade down now. So, CJ, we got to start off with the big stuff. Obviously, it's the QBs. Before any draft, that's the big stuff. So, we look at it here. There's the Dolphins with Tua. There's the Chargers with Herbert. There's Joe Burrow and the Bengals. We know Burrow's going to the Bengals. I don't think there's any real question around that. But the Tua-Herbert conversation's getting really interesting. What are you thinking with that?
So, the only reason why this conversation is so interesting is, of course, the Tua injury concern. So there's a lot. I honestly feel bad for Justin Herbert because there's a lot of slandering going on every single day, especially by my fan base for Miami Dolphins. Most of the fan base does not want him to be in a Fins uniform because they're a little scarred of the Ryan Tannehill comparisons and whatnot. But every time I go on Twitter, I see another phenomenal throw that was made by Justin Herbert. A lot of Oregon's mid-season was not really televised as much just because they fell off after that Auburn loss, and they really needed that to stay in the national championship game conversation. But regardless, Justin Herbert, in my opinion, is still a fine prospect. He's 6'6", has a rocket arm. I think he's a little bit more technically sound than Josh Allen is. And I think you could win with Herbert. You're never going to win because of Justin Herbert. And the difference between the two is if Tua is actually healthy, you can win because of Tua. And the Miami Dolphins have not had a quarterback. And really, I guess the Chargers, I mean, yeah, you can win. They had some times where they could win because of Phil Rivers, but did he ever bring them to that next level?
No.
So both these franchises, Dolphins a little bit more than the Chargers, are hungry for a game-changer quarterback that can win you a football game when you really need it. And we'll see who likes who here. But if the Dolphins really want to select 3 players in round 1, or if the Chargers want to hold on to some assets, they're going to have to stay put. And if that's the case, then the Dolphins are in the driver's seat because they're right above the Chargers. But can't really rule anything out at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key that you just brought up. It's the difference between the two. There's one that has a really high ceiling, and if he's really that guy, speaking of Tua right now, then he's a superstar quarterback. We talked to Greg Cosell. I bring this up all the time. We were talking to him at the Super Bowl. He said Tua's got to be a precision passer to work in this league. And, now there's comparisons to Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. So the ceiling for him is crazy. But when you look at Herbert, he's more of a guy, get him in the right system, give him the right coach, give him the right weapons. He's got the body, he's got the arm, and then maybe you can go from there. And I think the really interesting thing, and we talked about this a few weeks ago too, it's just the smoke screens that these two teams are doing right now. The Chargers are like, oh yeah, Tyrod Taylor is our quarterback, and the Dolphins are like, oh yeah, we love Herbert. I think they're both bullshitting right now. I think they both know who they want at quarterback right now. The Chargers want Herbert, and the Dolphins want Tua. What do you think about that?
I think that's accurate. I think both teams want Tua, and the Dolphins are doing their absolute best right now to basically say, like, yeah, Herbert's amazing. He's great. There's a few offensive linemen we love, and then whatever smoke screen you want about Jordan Love, I mean, he pops up in the conversation, which he's in the conversation.
Yeah, he's hopped up lately. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think both teams want Tua. All right. I think the Chargers want Tua in the sense of, okay, Tua Tagovailoa equals people in the stands. The Chargers have an attendance problem in the league. They're one of the only teams on Twitter that have less than 1 million followers. These things play into ticket sales, jersey sales. I mean, they need a guy that's going to put people in the seats. Philip Rivers couldn't do it last few years, and they were making the playoffs. They were 12-4 2 years ago, and it wasn't working out. They need that X factor, and that's where I thought that they would get Cam Newton, but obviously they didn't. I think both teams want to, but I think now they're playing a mind game because it would really stink if the Dolphins moved up to, let's say, 3, and they said, because there's no one's really going to trade. The only team that's going to trade with the Giants is the Chargers.
Right.
The Lions are in play for both teams to jockey for that spot. Okay? So it would stink if the Dolphins or the Chargers were to move up, and then the other team's plans were to always draft Herbert. Because at that point you've given up assets and picks when you didn't have to. So right now it's a mind game. I really like it because sometimes you can tell between smokescreen and not.
Yeah.
And the perfect smokescreen pawn at the moment is Justin Herbert. Every report, you get a Dolphins article. Oh, 6'6", the Dolphins brass, they love him. He's got a big arm for those late season games in New England and Buffalo, and then the Chargers are like, when they're at Kansas City in December and it's windy and cold, Justin Herbert's got a great arm, 6'6", he's great. It's all bullshit. It's all complete bullshit, and I love it. And I feel bad for Justin Herbert because at this point, it's got it all written on the wall that Justin Herbert's been slandered so much that he's going to come in this league and wreck everyone. So I don't know, but between Justin Herbert and Jordan Love, which is a whole other conversation, I don't really know what I would want. For me, it's Tua or go home at this point.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. Herbert's kind of stuck in the middle of a fight here. He's kind of just what do I do? These teams love me, but do they really love me? And it's so he knows he's got to come into this league and prove something. So, but we just talked about Jordan Love. He's gotten a lot of looks at recently. He was he was always really highly regarded, but a lot of people like Jacob Eason a lot, Fromm going into the season. Fromm's stock has gone way down. Let's not even talk about that. And then there's Jordan Love, there's Eason, and then you brought up a quarterback the other day, I forget his name, that you said no one's talking about.
Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, Anthony Gordon. Why don't you talk a little bit about him?
Anthony Gordon, to briefly talk about him, I was enamored with Anthony Gordon. I forget what month of the season it was, but it was after an FAU game. I tailgated. I went to the game. I was exhausted. I came home, showered, and got in bed and just put on that West Coast football on ESPN. Wazoo was hosting UCLA, and I'm a guy that likes to go on Google if I'm bored and see just you don't hear about as much stadiums and the college atmosphere, and I've been enamored with Washington State University just because of Mike Leach, Gardner Minshew.
Interesting, yeah.
They've been ranked in the top 10, top 15 a few times. So I flipped the TV on, and Anthony Gordon is just putting on a show. This guy's got 5 touchdowns in the first half. They're blowing out UCLA. The stadium's rocking. They got 70,000 people in there going nuts. And UCLA ends up storming back, and they actually won the game. Now, Washington State was up, I think, by 40 points, and UCLA ended up winning. But Anthony Gordon threw 9 touchdowns against UCLA.
Wow.
That's not a pushover team or program. Now, I know West Coast football is a lot of run and gun stuff, but I realized at that moment, I said, this guy could be a steal. I don't think he's a top 3 or 4 round. I think he's a 4th round pick, in all honesty, but it's definitely a player that a team is going to take a flyer on because, as JP Acosta was saying the other day, he plays backyard style football, and he's getting out of the pocket, heaving it downfield. But that's Anthony Gordon. I think the most polarizing quarterback in the draft right now, with the most amount of upside, but can easily be out of the league in 4 years without the proper coaching, is Jordan Love. Jordan Love's got a cannon arm with massive hands. And I can see him being legit, and I can also see him being no one's going to talk about that in 4 years.
Yeah, it depends on where he goes, because I feel like if Love ends up with the Colts, he gets mentored by Phillip Rivers for a year, that offensive line, they have one of the best total rosters in the league. If Jordan Love ends up with the Colts, that's a perfect fit. But, if he ends up in Vegas, behind Carr with Gruden, and it's kind of a circus over there sometimes, so you really, with these quarterbacks, you just got to find the right team. It's almost like Lamar Jackson, right? If he had been a number 1 overall pick and ended up with one of those really bad teams, instead of ending up with John Harbaugh and the Ravens, things could have been totally different right now. So a lot of the times with these quarterbacks, it just depends on where you go. So I look at this draft, though. We talk about the 3 and 4 picks right now, about how are these teams going to trade up. Well, we got to talk about those 2 teams, the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants. So the Lions, they're probably almost definitely going to trade out. They do, they obviously need some big defensive help. They've got some guys on the D-line, pass rushers. Where they really lack is secondary, which is why a lot of people had them getting Jeff Okudah at 3. They can still get Okudah if they trade down, possibly. So if you're the Lions, is it worth the risk losing out on that big corner just to trade down and let someone else draft a quarterback at 3?
So the way I view this is there's been a lot of reports going out right now about the Lions. They are in active talks to trade out of 3.
Right.
I've seen it 3 straight days now that the Lions are actively looking to trade out of 3. What this means is they're not getting what they want in terms of a negotiation and a trade partner. I'm sure they've spoken to the Dolphins. I'm sure they've spoken to the Chargers. I'm sure they've spoken to a Jaguars type team that is like, hey, would you like to make the move up to 3? Now, I think this is really the teams that they're talking to right now are the Chargers and the Dolphins. And the reason why the Chargers and the Dolphins have not made a deal yet or are not budging is because, hey, Detroit, you need a cornerback. And I know if you move back 2 spots, you're still going to get this guy. Why should I give up a first-round draft pick for the guy? Because you're still going to get your guy. So if you stay firm at 3, and we both don't trade with you, you're still going to draft a cornerback, and then it gets to the Giants, and they're still going to draft Isaiah Simmons.
Right.
So why would I trade with you? So it's really got to be like a second-round pick to move up to 3, and then they swap spots. Because, unfortunately, the Lions already I guess Darius Slay, in a way, forced the Lions' hand with leaving the organization. Darius Slay forcing his way out of Detroit shows that Detroit need to draft a quarterback. And who's the quarterback? Jeff Okudah. They're going to draft him at 5 or 3. Doesn't matter when they move back. All they're trying to do is get an asset right now. And I honestly think that the Detroit Lions are going to have to stay in that spot because of this. If Darius Slay had stayed, and they would have been able to make smoke screens about maybe drafting a quarterback or getting an Isaiah Simmons type player. But now they need a cornerback, and unfortunately they're going to be it's going to be hard for them to trade out of 3, which is crazy to think about. 3rd pick in the draft, everybody wants that pick.
Right. I mean, it is. I mean, it's just the way the draft is going, the way the order is going. You're right. I mean, the Lions could say, listen, we're not picking quarterback anyway. You don't even, I mean, not the Dolphins, sorry. Yes, the Dolphins. So the Dolphins could say, look, we can pick Tua down here at 5. We know that no one's going to pick him at 3 or 4, but then the Dolphins are risking, well, what if the Chargers go ahead of us? That's why it's valuable to trade up so that you know, okay, we're definitely getting this pick, and we know we definitely have the only chance at Tua, and that's why these teams are trying to trade up. So I feel like it's going to be more of a right as we get to that moment type of thing. The team makes the call, and they're like, fuck, we got to do it, because they're all stressed out right before the draft. It feels like one of those types of things because these negotiations are going to go right down to the wire. And like you said with Slay, I mean, yeah, he left. They need a corner. Detroit is really not going to rely on Desmond Trufant from Atlanta to replace him. Respectable corner, but they need a franchise type of guy that's going to be there for multiple years. They can't rely on a 2-year contract with Trufant. But then when you look at the Giants at 4, this is interesting because I'm a Giants fan. They can go a lot of different ways here. I'm of the mindset, actually, I'd prefer an offensive lineman. Why? Protect the assets. I think, what do you need in the NFL? You need a pass rush, an O-line, and a quarterback. And right now, they don't have O-line. They don't really have pass rush, but I value an O-line as more valuable than pass rush. Why? You need to protect the only assets that you have. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley both got injured last year. They need to be protected, and they need a tackle, whether it's a left tackle, right tackle. More left tackles are available this year. You need one right now, whether that's Willis or someone else. I would go there. I just saw a Giants fan poll where most fans want Isaiah Simmons because not only is he just a linebacker and an incredible player, but he plays multiple positions. So he's flexible. He could be a franchise type of guy on that defense. But part of me is like, okay, we hear every year that there's this can't-miss defenseman, and it's like, well, what has Bradley Chubb done for the Broncos, right? I mean, incredibly talented player, but the Broncos haven't even made the playoffs while Chubb's been there. So how valuable is that amazing defensive player? I think an O-line's a lot more valuable. Giants should draft Willis, but at the same time, will they trade that pick down to get more players? CJ, what are your thoughts on the New York Giants?
I think that they have to. In my opinion, you take Isaiah Simmons. I can't remember the last Giants defender or somebody on the Giants defense where I was like, wow. Like, Michael Strahan is, like, the first name that comes to mind. Jason Pierre-Paul had a few good years there. He wasn't, like, someone, like, insane.
Right. And then Landon Collins for a little bit, but that's it.
Yeah, I can't even remember the last linebacker from the New York Giants where I was like, dude, that guy's a beast. Isaiah Simmons can do off the edge and cover in the secondary. Like he's literally a utility knife for a young team.
Yeah.
That third down stop to get Daniel Jones back on the field, I feel like it's got to be Simmons. It has to be Simmons. If you're not going to take Simmons at 4, you better be trading down, getting assets, and trading down to like the 10th pick and drafting the best available O-line. Because I don't think that there's really an O-lineman in this draft that is worthy of a top 5 pick.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
You're not going to take Isaiah Simmons at 4 or Jeff Okudah at 4, whichever one is available, or if they're both available, you pick, whatever. If you're not taking one of the two, you're trading down because there's no O-lineman that is far and away amazing. Now, the Giants were linked to Andrew Thomas for the first, let's say, from November to January. It was like, yeah, we have Andrew Thomas of the Giants at 4. That's probably what's going to happen. Andrew Thomas's draft stock has fallen to the point where he might be in the teens drafted.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. And, people, Mekhi Becton, who's everyone's like, oh my God, Mekhi Becton. Well, he just got a bunch of bad reports about him, about some eating problem, not like a disability, but like he likes food too much. I don't even know what that means.
You don't want that coming out, yeah.
It's a BS report. Anyway, you're not taking that at 4. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, the other thing is if the Giants are going to trade down and not take Isaiah Simmons, which I think would be crazy, then at the 9, 10, 11, whatever it's going to be, you're going to have CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy available, and your entire fan base is going to be screaming at you to take one of those guys because they can't miss wide receiver prospects.
Yeah.
So at this point, you might as well just take Isaiah Simmons and go to bed after that as a Giants fan and just be happy that you have the most versatile defender to come through the league since, I don't even know. I can't even name a guy that has this skill set. So that's my opinion on the Giants.
I mean, I listen. I mean, that's a lot of really good points. I mean, there's a lot of different things that they could do, and a lot of different situations where things can work or not work. But I look at it. I mean, I think, second best option is trading down, getting that O lineman, getting more picks after that. The Giants need more than just one player. I mean, they need to revamp the whole defense. They need a left tackle. They need receivers. They're just so screwed in basically every category that I think, does Isaiah Simmons fix all of your problems? I mean, I think he does. Maybe on defense. I love him. I think he's a generational type player. But at the same time, they don't have a left tackle right now. And your quarterback and running back got injured. That just scares me a little bit. But again,
the injury part for Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley would scare me for sure. But what also scares me is, hey Daniel, we need you to throw three touchdowns a game.
Yeah, and who do you throw to, right?
Like, you got to get the defense off the field, and Isaiah Simmons is a guy that literally on a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 7, those annoying third downs that you need to have, he doesn't let those up.
Right.
He plugs the field, he gets to the quarterback, he's going to cover that tight end, and that for me is invaluable, in my opinion. The Giants are in the division with the Eagles, correct?
Yeah, NFC East.
Yeah, you got when you play Zach Ertz twice a year, you can minimize Zach Ertz just through Isaiah Simmons.
And the Cowboys too, you can neutralize them, and there are some really good quarterbacks and some really good offenses in this division, and that's not just right now. That's always the case. There's always great offenses in the NFC East, and then of course Ron Rivera in Washington now. Who knows what happens with them? I'm not thinking this year that they're that good, but in the future, Dwayne Haskins, Ron Rivera, who knows? So Chase Young, right? I mean, another generation, and that's what bothers me the most because the Giants had that 2 pick, and then they had to beat the Redskins in a meaningless game. It's just like you could have had Chase Young. What are you doing?
New York Giants jersey under the lights would have been nuts.
Now he's stuck in Washington, the purgatory of the NFL. Just it's depressing. It's depressing.
I think Ron Rivera, and off topic here, I think Ron Rivera's going to turn them around. I think the Washington Redskins through Ron Rivera are going to become an actually above average team at some point.
Yeah, I mean, like, already, I heard he came in, he went right into the locker room, then he was like, yeah, get the pool table out of here, get the TVs out, get the this out. He fired a bunch of people. He probably walked in there like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, he's running a really well-run organization over there in Carolina. He gets over to Washington, it's basically a shit show. So he kind of had to walk in there already, day one. He's cleaning crap out of the office. So this is a guy that, he's all business.
Very similar to what Brian Flores had to do with the Dolphins. I mean, he came in and he was like, if you don't want to play and be a Miami Dolphin, you can get the fuck out and I'll trade you for a first or second round pick tomorrow. Like,
yeah, 100%. Right.
You want out? You got Minka Fitzpatrick. You're an amazing talent. You're a great safety or cornerback, whatever the hell I want you to play. You don't want to be here? Goodbye. Goodbye.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's if the draft were to be today and the Lions, which I kind of feel like aren't going to get out of that third pick for something that they genuinely want, which is another first-round draft pick probably, or a high second-round pick, which the Dolphins can give them either or, but I don't think they want to. I think it will go Burrow, Young, Okudah, Simmons, and then I don't even know what the Finns want to do at quarterback, but whatever.
If Tua's there for the Dolphins, they're taking Tua. I don't see anything else happening.
Nuts. I think it would be nuts. And I literally, I'll send you the video, but a bunch of videos are circulating of when the Dolphins drafted Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah.
When the entire fan base wanted them to draft Brady Quinn, which hindsight, now looking at it, it's like, well, Brady Quinn kind of sucked. Anyway. Everyone at the draft party at the Miami Dolphins practice facility freaked out, and I'm telling you, there are going to be a lot of people like saying, "I'm done with the Dolphins. Like, I'm done with the Miami Dolphins." If Justin Herbert and Tua are both there at 5 and they go Herbert, but we'll see what happens. This is like a crazy time right now. But I've seen a few teams want to move up for a wide receiver. The Eagles.
Yeah, right.
I've seen a bunch of teams that are interested, but let me ask you this: what are your opinions on the CeeDee Lamb getting the higher draft grade over Jerry Jeudy?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that originally. I do think, though, him with Carson Wentz, I mean, Jesus. I mean, Carson Wentz is a top 5 quarterback with no real target. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey's nice, but he hasn't been good in 2 years. Zach Ertz is nice, but he's a tight end. You get a wideout like that with CeeDee Lamb, put him in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. You can say Amari Cooper versus CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the NFC East. Carson Wentz is better than Dak. Maybe get a little bit of a running game going in Philly because they don't really have one right now because they lost Jordan Howard. I mean, they could also do that, by the way. If the Eagles draft someone, because a lot of these running backs are going to fall second, third round. If they're able to trade up and get CeeDee Lamb and then get like a J.K. Dobbins in the second or third round, they could totally revamp their offense in one draft.
Mm-hmm. That's I know that's what the Finns are trying to do right now is mimic a little bit of what the Cowboys did, which was pair young Dak Prescott with young Ezekiel Elliott, let them play together.
Right.
Now that didn't really work out this past year, but I think that this upcoming year they'll be back in the playoffs. I think that team's too talented, in my opinion. But I know the Dolphins are interested in Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, or DeAndre Swift. I would be ecstatic with all three, but I saw a report yesterday saying the Dolphins did an immense amount of work on Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU, which I think he's a stud. Anyway, something else that we should definitely bring up here is running backs. This running back draft is good. It is good. And
wait, CJ. Hey, we can't draft running backs in the second round according to Kevin Fielder, right?
Yeah, Kevin Fielder, our pro inside source here that goes to whatever practice facilities and training camps is now all of a sudden Bill Parcells and says that we are not allowed to draft a running back high, which is just ridiculous. But anyway, when Ryan Fitzpatrick is your leading rusher, that's when you know you should probably draft a running back. But
probably, yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, there's a lot of teams, though, if they get one of those backs, like, what if KC picks up one of those guys? That's the only thing you could look at in that Chiefs offense where it's like, they have a good running game, but it's not amazing. If they got one of those backs, dude, I mean, you're talking Tyreek Hill. I mean, that could recreate what they had when Kareem Hunt was there. before he got sent over to Cleveland after all the situations that occurred with him. But yeah, I mean, wherever these running backs go, I mean, it's a great running back draft. It was originally supposed to be a good left tackle draft, but like you said, a lot of those stocks have gone down. Great wide receiver draft, pretty good quarterback draft. It's going to be a fun one for sure. And you brought up the Jaguars earlier, actually, and they actually have a ton of picks right now. And I think what their mindset is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think they want to draft as many good players as they can right now, lose as many games as they can this year, and Trevor Lawrence might be a Jaguar at this time next year.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, you really got to get it right over the next 2 years in the draft to get a winner there. And not only a winner, a few players that put butts in the seat. I mean, all this talk of them moving to London is pretty scary.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't think the NFL should be in another country.
No.
And if we're to go to another country, it should probably be like Toronto.
Right.
Or like to Canada, but if they were to go to a city outside of the U.S., Toronto. Maple Leafs, Blue Jays, Toronto Raptors, all successful franchises that get a lot of fans in the seats. And if the city of Toronto had a football team, I think that would be the move. But I think Roger Goodell is enamored with the prospect of a team in England. So if I'm the Jags, what I'm doing is I'm drafting Derek Brown at 9. I think that he's incredible. It's not a flashy pick, but he's so unbelievably good that he himself can completely bolster their D-line for the run game, and he's good at getting after the quarterback. Now, I think at that point, you're going to see the Jags pretty busy on draft day and not trading up, but actually trading out of some picks to pick up assets for the following draft. I think what you're saying is right. I think the Jags will be in pole position next year to be drafting a Justin Fields or a Trevor Lawrence, and at that point, you've revamped your franchise, and they're going to put people in the seats, and they're going to be a good football team. Both those quarterbacks are going to be winners. So I think that the Jags play it safe here. I think they draft the best D-tackle on the board, which in my opinion is the best D-tackle in the draft, Derek Brown. But if I could also see them going wide receiver. I've never really liked the Jags wide receivers, so I can see going Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb. But I think it'll be Derek Brown there. And then the following year, like you said, they're going to stink and then go Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Yeah,
it's them or Carolina, really. And, you look around the entire league right now, Cam Newton can't even find a starting job. That's how many teams have quarterbacks right now. So it's Jacksonville or Carolina for Lawrence and Fields next year, which is pretty crazy unless some unforeseen event happens during the NFL season. Who knows what that would be? Obviously, I said it's unforeseen, but we've had a pretty good conversation here, CJ. I think we've covered pretty much all there is to say. Unless there's something that you haven't brought up yet. But yeah, this has been a great pod. We're going to come out with a really good one in a few days, everyone. Me and CJ and Steven, we all got new mics, and we're going to be doing these Skype calls now for better audio quality. So we're going to have the NFL mock draft pod coming out, I would say, the day before the draft. Would you say is a good time to release it, CJ?
Any time before the draft between Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, so it'll come out anytime between then. Also tonight, depending on when Steven gets his mic, guys, we will have that Seattle Mariners podcast up for you today. That's starting the AL West, and then we'll move on to the rest of that division, then to the AL Central, then to the AL East. We'll do an AL playoff video, and then we'll be done with baseball for a while. That's going to end up being 32 pods in 32 days for baseball. It's been really fun. Steven and I have been doing that. And then you and I, CJ, we've got some more NBA stuff to do soon, but we'll do that post-draft. There's really no rush. And then we've got some hockey pods coming in the future as well. And that'll do it today. So you guys can listen to us on a lot of different platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Breaker, CastBox, and a bunch of other places as well. You can follow us on Twitter at StrictSportsFAU. For CJ Uri, I'm Jacob Brown, and we'll see you next time.